The Browns have signed a veteran center, so we're going to break it down to start today's show off. And then we'll get to the Greg Newsome 5th-year option decision that the Browns made. But before we get into all that good stuff, I was looking at our YouTube analytics, and last April we picked up 419 subscribers. This April we have picked up 401 subscribers, and we are running out of hours at this point. So help us take down our metrics from last year. Hit the sub button down below if you're looking for the best free Browns YouTube content out there. But let's get you guys familiar with Brian Allen. The former 4th-round pick out of Michigan State has agreed to terms with the Cleveland Browns. He's got loads of experience, started 32 games for the Rams, appeared in 50. Now, he hasn't been a routine starter for them the last 2 or 3 years, so I think we have a pretty good idea as to how the Rams viewed him at the end of his stint in LA. But when you're finding veteran presence like this late in the offseason, it's hard to be that upset with it. Now, when I saw this news, I'm not going to lie, just a small fraction of me was like, that's a little bit strange, because when you look at the Browns' offensive line, they don't really have a need for a center or even like a backup center. Sure, they lost Nick Harris to the Seahawks in free agency, but they drafted Luke Whippler last year out of Ohio State. They drafted Dawson Deaton not long before then out of, I think, Texas Tech. So I'm not quite sure if there's a little bit of news coming down the pipeline in the future, or the more likely situation is this is just a camp body. The Browns only had 6 draft picks. They didn't even make that many UDFA signings. Like, they didn't max out their 90 roster spots. So they had some room, and maybe they just wanted an extra center to help run some of the OTAs and minicamp drills to keep the offense going. Andrew Berry, though, just in a general state of the union for the offseason and roster additions, is likely not done. We have seen Berry like to make moves after the draft. Some GMs kind of kick their feet up going, all the hard work is done. You know, their offseason or our offseason is their in season. Now they hand things over to the head coach. But Andrew Berry does not operate that way. He works 365 days a year when it comes to looking for ways to improve the roster. And after the draft was over, he was asked about adding more players. And he said, I'd say in any room, we don't feel like we're done. We can probably catch our breath for a day, but I think we talked about before the draft, Zadarius Smith, we traded for on a Friday night in the middle of May. I remember that quite well. Shelby Harris, we signed early August? And we traded for Pierre Strong and Dustin Hopkins, at the end of camp. So I think the Browns could have another move up their sleeves. If I had to pick a position that they might target next, maybe tight end, because they did not draft a tight end. They did add a tight end via UDFA from Wyoming, Trenton Welch. But when you look at the Browns and their roster and their needs, I think internally Cleveland is much more comfortable with the running back room than maybe you and I are. I think the same can be said for the wide receiver room. Sure, they drafted one, but it took all the way to the 5th round to add another wideout. And I think with the trades of Cooper, Moore, Judy, picks of Tillman and Bell, and now Thrash, the Browns are a lot more content with their wide receiver makeup. But if a really good player becomes available, the Browns are going to be one of the first teams to at least pick up the phone and inquire what the cost would be to get that player. So when I look across their roster, I could see tight end being a spot where they go, we've got David Njoku, he's a Pro Bowl player. And then there's a little bit of a question mark after that with Jordan Akins and Giovanni Ricci, the fullback they got from the Panthers / tight end, Zaire Mitchell-Payton. Tight end's a spot where I could see them going, we are one injury away from not having a very good tight end room. Let's try and upgrade our backup and our depth at that spot. The Browns are always looking to add depth to cornerstone pieces like edge rusher, wide receiver, cornerback. Why do you think they always draft or sign those players every single offseason? So those could be other spots to watch for, but they're pretty loaded at those rooms. So does Andrew Berry have another big move coming? Give me an A, B for yes, or give me a P for pass. Now, the Browns also made some news earlier this morning. They have decided to pick up Greg Newsome's 2025 $13.3 million 5th-year option. Now, I looked for you all, $13.3 million just by average salary in 2025 is going to be around 14. Now, of course, that can change as more contracts are made and whatnot, but it gives you a rough idea as to where Newsome is going to rank amongst his peers. I personally have no issue with this decision. If you are just waking up, you should know by now how highly Andrew Berry values the cornerback position. And the same is said for pretty much all other 31 teams. So he's got a good to solid starting cornerback that he can get to $13 million for an extra year. Yeah, I'm not surprised Andrew Berry took Greg Newsome and his salary cap management team up on that offer. Newsome, the last 3 years, I think has shown improvement as well, especially in just his first year with the Jim Schwartz defense. Goes from no interceptions, no real big playmaking ability. I mean, not abilities, but playmaking opportunities or whatnot, to 2 interceptions, 14 pass breakups, a pick 6 against the Baltimore Ravens, and solid coverage stats. Like, I'm not going to stand here and argue that Greg Newsome is a top 10 corner in the NFL. No. But I think Greg Newsome has shown he is a starting caliber corner. And in his first year with Jim Schwartz as his defensive coordinator, he proved to be one of the better nickel corners in the league. And the trajectory is pointing upwards for the former Northwestern Wildcat. So I've got no qualms, no issue, no beef with the Browns picking up this $13.3 million fifth-year option. It's going to secure the Browns' cornerback room for 2 more years at the very least. Martin Emerson will definitely be getting his payday, probably not anytime in the near-ish future. I think that could be something we see maybe a year from now, but there's definitely a lot of optimism about the Browns' cornerback room and just the overall direction it is headed, and I think Andrew Berry is wise for wanting to keep this room intact. So let me toss this question for you guys on screen right now. Do you agree with picking up the 5th-year option? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Let me know what you think about the Browns exercising the $13.3 million 5th-year option. It's not no money, but also compared to other cornerbacks and at his, play range, it's maybe a little bit on the high end. But if you don't pick it up and Newsome has even a better of a 2024 season than he did in 2023, he's going to be getting a lot more than $13 million in free agency. So why not pick it up and keep the band together for at least 2 more seasons? All right, let's bring on Trizzy Trace to wrap up the show. Trace, which card do you want to go with, my friend?
I'm liking the 5 of spades.
5 of spades? Give me the 9 of diamonds. I had someone comment on a previous video, what do you get if you get the card right? I was like, $1 million.
Awesome.
Like that's what you get. Yeah. You get my job. How about that?
Yes.
I'll take your job. That could
Whoa.
That could go a handful of directions.
Now we're playing with fire.
I mean, what if like a CEO's watching? What if Andrew Berry's definitely watching?
Andrew Berry.
I'd probably do that. I'd probably execute that trade.
So if Andrew Berry's watching, pick a card. And if we get it right, we get your job.
First order of business, if the Browns score 30 points at home games, free corn dogs.
Free corn dogs.
Just on the way out.
People.
Free corn dogs, Jackie. All right, here we go. Ready? What'd you say?
5 of spades.
5 of hearts.
Damn it!
5 of hearts. Ooh, off the back iron. All right. Now, we're going to see you guys in a few short hours. We will be live on the channel at 4 o'clock Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. So come hang out with Trizzy Trace and myself as we catch up to speed on all things Cleveland Browns.